What's the latest with Apple and Adobe when it comes to their creative software and subscriptions, and what does it mean for community media? Hi, I'm Seth from Metasonde. I work with community media centers on information technology, audio video engineering, operations, and outreach. And we're going to start with Apple and the announcement of their new Creator Studio. Now, I previously made a video about this, which I'll link in the description below, so I'll just do a quick recap and some of the new information that's been announced when it comes to this new offering. Now, if you already own Final Cut Pro or Logic or even Motion or Compressor, the short story is that things don't have to change if you don't want them to. What Apple did was announce a brand new Creator Studio subscription package, which includes all those apps along with what we refer to as the iWork apps like Keynote and Pages and Numbers, except all of these apps are now available on a subscription basis instead. Now, if you're already using those programs, the good news is that this is a new offering and it does not replace the lifetime or perpetual version of the software that you may have purchased, well, probably years ago. And at least for now, both versions, Apple is promising, will get the latest and greatest features. But there are some differences. So, for example, for the subscription package of Creator Studio, you'll get access to new templates and text generators, all those little things in Final Cut that you can do to quickly build graphics and such. Now, they're nice, but do they replace some of the more premium offerings like from Envato Elements or Motion VFX? Well, not really. And at least for the interim, Apple will still continue to offer those perpetual versions of the software. So if you need to purchase Final Cut Pro new, you can still buy the lifetime version of the software. You don't need to get the subscription as of today. Now, in case you want to know what it costs, Apple is offering that full bundle, so Final Cut, Motion, Compressor, Logic, all those apps, for $12.99 per month or $129 per year. Now, something that has changed is that Apple historically has offered what they call the Education Bundle, where you got Final Cut and Logic, Motion, and Compressor for $200. It was a pretty good deal because all of those software packages together would cost you a pretty penny. Well, that's gone now, and they are pushing people to the new Education Bundle, which is a discounted version of Creator Studio. Now, historically, this has not been available for nonprofits. It really is just for K-12 and college and university students and teachers, so nothing really missing there. You can also get Creator Studio on a free trial basis. They'll offer it for 3 months if you buy a new Mac, so a new MacBook Pro, a new iMac, etc. You can try out the apps for that 90-day period. Now, I think the target audience for this subscription, especially the lower cost of entry, like $13 per month, really is intended for the individual creator. They may be on a budget. They may want to try things out for a few months and not necessarily commit to buying all of the apps at once. So when it comes to that, it is a way to get people into Apple's creative ecosystem. But for the professional environment, like in community media, the subscription, I don't really think makes sense at this point. It's really for those who are kind of just getting started. And speaking to that point, you cannot purchase Creator Studio through VPP, which is Apple's volume purchase program. Now, this is few and far between, but if you have purchased apps for a larger deployment, so a larger fleet of computers, you can actually buy them in bulk through Apple. That's what VPP is for. At least as of right now, this Creator Studio bundle is not available through there. So if you're buying Macs at scale, you'll actually still purchase Final Cut Pro and those apps through the volume purchase program if you're already set up for that. If you're not, then nothing changes. Are there benefits to the Creator Studio? Well, a few. So not only does this give you access to the Mac OS versions of Final Cut Pro, but also to the iPad versions of both Final Cut and Logic. So if you haven't played with those yet, this does get you access, all for that one price of $12.99 per month. It does lower the cost of entry for Logic, which is Apple's audio editing software. It's kind of like the next level up from GarageBand, but in my opinion, not as good as Adobe Audition. You also get access to Pixelmator Pro, which is an image editing software. It's similar to Adobe's Photoshop, but maybe a little bit more scaled back, but you can do very simple image edits, cropping, and layer-based image editing, etc. Apple bought Pixelmator just a couple of years ago, and this Creator Studio is now the official introduction for the app into the fleet of Apple Creative apps. And I talked about the templates that you gain access to in Final Cut. Well, the iWork apps like Numbers and Pages and Keynote will also get new design templates that are exclusive to the Creator Studio bundle. Remains to be seen how awesome and high end they are. But again, if you're comparing the templates you get versus something that you may subscribe to separately, like Motion VFX, you're going to want to stick with that instead. So to summarize, and what does this mean? Well, if you already use Final Cut, Motion, and Compressor, you've already purchased it, there is no immediate change. Apple did make good on the promise to keep both the perpetual version and the subscription versions up to date with each other. So version 12 just came out a couple of weeks ago, and that's in my previous video where I talked a little bit more in detail about the transcript and visual search features, as well as beat detection. I already mentioned the templates, that they're not going to replace anything third-party that you may have been subscribing to add on to Final Cut. And if you're buying a new Mac and you need to purchase Final Cut, or maybe you're just getting into the ecosystem, or you need to purchase it for an extra staff member, whatever the case may be, I do still recommend buying the lifetime or perpetual version of the software. It is still available, and the good news is that once you buy it, you can hold on to it. So should that change in the future, you have it, you're all set. I still would recommend purchasing that software today, despite this new subscription being available. From Apple to Adobe now, and let's talk about what's new for Adobe's Creative Cloud when it comes to licensing, subscriptions, and software packaging. There are some recent changes that you may want to be aware of. Now, let's talk about licensing when it comes to Creative Cloud. There is some confusion about it. It can be a little messy at times. There are two versions, either the named license or the shared device license. Now, they're each costed on a per user or a per device basis, but there are some differences and nuances to what they include. The named licensing is what I would recommend most community media centers would want to buy into. You purchase per user, so per staff, etc. It does bundle in extra features like Adobe fonts and some of their AI features like generative fill and generative extend, which are quite nice in both Photoshop and Premiere. And again, this is the most common choice for staff use. Shared device licensing is a little bit more common in computer labs, especially in schools. You may have purchased these for your editing suites, and rumor has it that the shared device license may soon be phased out. And I think that's for good reason, because it has a very picky way that you have to install the software and then remove the software. So maybe not a major loss there. It also doesn't include Adobe fonts. It limits the AI features that are built into the software, and you still have to have an Adobe ID ready to go to be able to use the software. So again, if you're debating between a named license and a shared device license, I'd still totally go with the named license, especially if those shared device ones become sunsetted in the coming years. Now, you have two options for your named license. What was called Adobe's Creative Cloud for Teams All Apps is now Creative Cloud Pro for Teams, and what was referred to as the Creative Cloud for Teams All Apps Pro Edition, this is a mouthful, is now referred to as Pro Plus for Teams. So you have these two options available to you, and let's break down what the differences are. Both of those include all of the apps, your Premiere, your Photoshop, your Media Encoder, After Effects, Audition, I can go on and on. They're all there. You also get the mobile versions of the apps too if you wanted to use the iPhone and iPad OS versions of Creative Cloud. Both include generative AI features and credits like Adobe Firefly, so you can make images with this. You have all those generative extend features for Photoshop and Premiere. They both include a terabyte of storage per user. Pro Plus, however, goes one step further and bundles in Adobe Stock. And if you haven't played around with Adobe Stock recently, you'll want to learn a little bit more about it. It's quite nice, and we're going to break that down here. But what do these two options cost? So Pro for Teams, and this is based on a nonprofit discount, which roughly equates to 50% off the list price. Now, when it comes to Adobe and nonprofits, you do have to get it from a reseller, so there's going to be some variations, but the average, if you look online, is around $420 to $440 annually per user, and that's for the Pro for Teams. Pro Plus takes it one step further. It's an extra $60 on average or so between $480 to $520 annually. And again, these are non-profit discounts. There are similar discounts available for education. Unfortunately, if you're a municipal department, you do have to pay full price, or at least you're not eligible for these nonprofit discounts. Now, I talked about Adobe Stock and that extra $60 a year per user. What does that get you? Well, in addition to photos that you can intersperse in your work, you also get access to stock videos, but also templates and audio. Now, when it comes to the audio, it's your typical royalty free production music. Remains to be seen if you'd want to opt for something like that or some of the other services or even some of the AI generated music out there, which is quite nifty if you haven't played around with that. That's a different video for a different day. But let's talk about the templates because you have access to After Effects templates, templates you can use in Premiere that give you graphics and text generators, etc. So if you're already paying for something separate like Envato or Storyblocks or Motion VFX, have a look at Adobe Stock because for that extra $60 per year per user, you may find that this is a suitable replacement. And it really is a minimum upcharge, right? From Pro to Pro Plus on the nonprofit side, if those new features and if those new templates, etc., would be useful for you. So have a look at Adobe Stock if you haven't seen it recently. And just a reminder, those AI features I talked about in the Adobe Creative Cloud program, have a look at them if you haven't used them recently. On Photoshop, you have generative fill, which lets you draw a box or the marching ants tool around something, and you can give it a prompt, like you can remove something or you can change a color, that sort of thing. You have generate similar, which will give you different variations of an image. And my personal favorite, the generative expand, which will make an image larger or continue on with a pattern like you see here in this example. It's a great way to maybe stretch something out to fill a full like 1920 by 1080 box if you have to take a square image and drag it out for a full 16 by 9 format. It's super useful for that. On the Premiere side, you have the generative extend feature, which will let you extend a clip by a few seconds. So if you need to bridge a gap for some B-roll, or you need some extra handles on either side of a clip because you're doing a longer transition, the expand features in Premiere are just the tip of the iceberg. There's some really great stuff in there, especially again Photoshop and Premiere for those Adobe AI features, which are all baked in with those named user licenses for the Pro and for the Pro Plus options. So really some neat stuff to check out if you haven't looked at it lately. So that's the latest when it comes to both Apple and Adobe when it comes to the creative software in community media for February of 2026. If you need help sifting through this software, you want to talk about the options, I'd love to talk to you. Please visit my website at metasonde.com, or you can click on the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching.